Hi, English students. It is Wednesday, April the 15th. I hope that everybody had a really great long weekend, that you're able to get out and enjoy some okay weather, and hopefully things are starting to turn around now. As you can see, I'm kind of lamenting the presence of snow in our life, so I've been messing around with our Zoom program in my computer, and I don't know, this suits me pretty well. I like it. Okay. I just want to thank everybody for passing in their assignments. I've received just a flood of work from students in the last couple of days, so I really appreciate that. Again, we have 4 assignments that are currently due right now, just very basic reading assignments, a little bit of pre-reading research, and those should be emailed to me. If you haven't done so already, get those into me as soon as you can, because today we're going to have a bit of a writing assignment. I just want to let you know that your grades are coming. Like many parents out there can relate to, trying to get stuff done around the house with kids here is impossible. And so I'm getting there. And I promise you that they're coming, so thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about chapter 5 and chapter 6, because those are the ones that we're going to be reading together over the next 2 days-ish. We'll see how far we get. I've had some really great conversations with some of you lately. I really appreciate that some of you have been emailing me, or we've been having Facebook Messenger chats about the book. And one of my favorite conversations that I had recently was with a student who said, well, what's up with the dreaming thing? Like, why is it such a big deal to people in the world that they've lost their ability to dream? I mean, who cares? It's just dreaming, right? And so I thought that was a really good conversation. And so I think that there's 2 different levels, perhaps, to that answer. Again, this is just my theory. I haven't had a conversation with Cherie about this. And your interpretation of the lack of dreaming may vary. The lovely thing about English is you can say whatever you want, and you're always right. So I think that there's both a connotative and a denotative way of interpreting this. Connotative and denotative, how do I explain that? Denotative is like on a more literal level. So in a more literal way, what is it that dreaming brings to our life? Why would it be such a bad thing for us to lose our ability to dream? And so if you're to do a really quick Google on sort of the importance of sleep and the importance of dreaming on humans, you're going to find things like there's significant impacts on people. So things like it can impact your immunity, your ability to hold back disease or viruses, can be compromised if you're not getting good sleep, and specifically if you're not dreaming. It can impact your metabolic system. So things like you're not able to process toxins, consequence could be obesity. It can also have a very dramatic impact on your mental health. Dreaming is a lot like self-therapy. When you're dreaming, you're processing your day, you're processing aspects of your life, you're creating imagined scenarios that are stressful and being able to process them, sometimes in a way that's very helpful, and sometimes in a way that just sort of expresses anxieties. It's like an emotional outburst of your mind. And so that in itself creates good health and wellness. And so you can imagine what the consequence would be if an entire race, entire civilization lost the ability to dream. I mean, what would be the consequence on people's physical health and on their mental health? So that's perhaps the more literal interpretation of it. I think that the connotative interpretation, or the more metaphorical interpretation, comes a lot with the idea of hope. Because, I mean, hope is the idea of having a dream, right? And I think that in this dystopian world in which we find ourselves in the Marrow Thieves, in the face of this global collapse that Frenchie is living in, we're seeing things like ecological deterioration with the melting of the ice caps and California sinking into the sea and cities, completely collapsing. You're seeing economic decline in that, the government isn't being run the same way it used to be. You don't see the same sort of societal structures, and there's attacks on culture. There's terrible things happening. And even in the face of all of that catastrophe, who keeps the ability to dream? The Indigenous people of Canada, potentially the Indigenous people of the world. And so they have the ability to dream. And so the world turns to them for the solution. Now, I think that it's a bit of a criticism perhaps on Sri Gemaline's part, because, I mean, when we turn that way to be able to look for the solution, to be able to turn to Indigenous ways of thinking and seeing and living, perhaps she's saying that the non-Indigenous way is to then go and take and destroy and to, you know, just consume without thought of consequence. I mean, that's certainly the historical impact of colonization. And so perhaps that's the criticism. Anyway, that's just my interpretation. I think that the characters in this story are incredibly inspiring. And I think that their determination to hold on to that hope, to hold on to their ability to dream and to not give in to the violence around them is pretty amazing. The resiliency and the determination to survive is pretty admirable. So when you go in and read chapter 5, yes, it's chapter 5, this one is called Haunted in the Bush. I really like this chapter. I think that there's some really important moments in very quiet sections of the story. For the most part, they're just going out on a hunting trip. They need to go out and get some game. And these moments when Frenchie is walking through the forest and contemplating his life, his friendships, his relationships, his place in the world, I think that he has some really important insights that I don't want to get overlooked. So your first assignment, and it's attached to the email in which you found this link, your first assignment is I want you to find me 2 quotes. They could be things that Frenchie says or does, or they could just be general lines anywhere in chapter 5. Find me 2 passages from chapter 5 that you think are important. Maybe they're important to Frenchie, maybe they're important to the group, maybe they're important observations of the world, or maybe you think that they're important ideas about life in general and how they apply to us. For whatever reason, find me 2 quotes, 2 lines that you think are important. Tell me what they are, what page they came from, and then why you chose them. That's a pretty straightforward thing. The second question for chapter 5 is, in the hunting trip, Frenchie has to make a choice. And I want to know, do you agree with the choice that he made at the end of chapter 5? Why or why not? Try to give me a good sized paragraph. We're talking 4 or 5 sentences. Do you agree with the choice that Frenchie made when he was out hunting? So that's chapter 5. Chapter 6 is super tiny. I love chapter 6. I think that there's interesting things happening in chapter 6. And part of the reason I think it's so interesting is, let's see. Okay, so chapter 6 is called A Plague of Madness. And they have a wonderful allusion. Allusion, A-L-L-U-S-I-O-N, allusion. An allusion is when you're referring to another something else, another book, another movie, poem, short story, historical event, or alluding to something else. Well, they make an allusion, a very obvious one, to a book called The Plague by Albert Camus. And I think it's a wonderful parallel. I just want to teach you a little bit about that really quickly. So the quote that you're looking for is on page 53. And who was it? Mig says to the group, he says, I read this book once, written by this Algerian fellow. Camus was his name. Anyway, in this story was all these people trapped inside their own town because the plague attacks them and they're put into quarantine. Sounds familiar, huh? Okay, let's do a really quick screen share because I want to share a video with you. I am not going to share the whole thing with you today, but I am going to share part of it with you and then ask you to click on the link in the email, follow it, go watch the whole thing. You will need it for your assignment for chapter 6. Okay, so it is a 10-minute video. I think it's fascinating. I first became familiar with Camus when I was in university. I read a book by by him called The Stranger. And The Stranger is a great little weird read. And I remember enjoying it enormously. I haven't read The Plague, but I've started to now. And man, this is a twisted story in the sense that there are so many parallels, not only to the things that Meg is talking about in terms of this dystopian society, but also the parallels of what's happening in our life right now. Crazy. Okay, so let's see if I can actually get the sound to work this time. If not, I'm going to be sitting here awkwardly for the next few minutes. Hopefully you will be able to hear it. So let's just make sure that this is working. All right, here we go. Let's listen to the first few moments of this video. Right? Listen to that again. You got to listen to that again. If you spaced out for a second, you got to listen to that again. Again, the parallels between our life right now and this one. What? So this book very much talks about sort of the fragility of our own mortality. But what's really interesting is that this book, as this video goes on to explain, very much examines character. Do epidemics, plagues, pandemics like we're experiencing now, bring out the best in people or the worst in people? And that's sort of what Mig is talking about in here. He's asked by, who is it? He's asked by Wab, I believe it was. Yes. She says, do you think circumstances make people turn bad? Or that people make circumstances bad to begin with? And so this book, The Plague, also goes on to discuss this idea a little bit. I would like you to finish watching this video. I think it's important. I think it's interesting. I think it's relevant. And I want you to be able to talk about it in your question that I'm going to ask you for question 6. Now, extracurricular learning time. If you're interested in reading this book, I have not been able to find a free PDF version that's very readable. Unfortunately, it's not available through the public library either. However, I did find a complete audiobook online on YouTube. And so I just put in The Plague audiobook, Albert Camus. This one was posted by somebody called Matthew Watts. I don't know who this guy is or where it came from, but I'm just happy it's there. The complete audiobook of The Plague is on there. In order to do this assignment, though, you do need to be able to watch the rest of this video. This one right here, that's on YouTube. Okay, so what is the assignment for for chapter 6? Let me just stop the share. How do I stop the sharing? Don't even know. Oh, there it is. Technology. Okay, here's the question, and it's only one, but I really want a thoughtfully detailed answer. Do you believe that global catastrophe, specifically pandemics like the one that we find ourselves in right now, brings out the best in people or the worst in people? And then I want you to tell me what you mean by that. I want you to explain. I want you to explain using some of the ideas, if you can, of what they talk about in the Marrow Thieves. I'd like you to specifically talk about the video about the plague, the Albert Camus. And more importantly, I want you to give me your opinion based on the observations you make. Maybe it's what you're seeing on the news. Maybe it's what you're seeing in terms of policy and enforcement in the Northwest Territories. Maybe it's what you're seeing in your community, in your family, in your household, between you and your partner. Who knows? So the question is, do you believe that this pandemic is bringing out the best or the worst in people? Here's the challenge. I want about 300 words. So you're gonna have to do a word count on this, about 300 words. Double space it, please. It's so much easier for me to read that way. And that's it. And so talking about the book, talking about Camus, talking about what you're seeing in the world around you, talking about whatever you can to be able to help me to understand your opinion on that topic. Again, this is all included in your handout, which is part of the email in which you received today. That's all you have to do for chapter 5 and 6. I'll send you another small thing on Friday. It won't be too much because I really want you to concentrate your time and effort on this particular writing assignment. I hope that everybody is good. I hope that you are staying on top of things. I hope that you're well. I miss teaching this class in person. I'm a back and forth person. I would love to know if you're interested in doing a Zoom session with me. I'd like to do that maybe next week. You can make it optional if you really want to, but I want to hang out with you and talk to you about this book. I think there's cool stuff happening. So I'll keep you posted on whether or not that happens. Okay, take care everyone, and we will talk again soon. Bye.